Hello, welcome everybody. Today I have a really beautiful guest with me. Her name is Shakti, and I'm super delighted to have her here on the channel. Welcome, Shakti.
Thank you, Lisa. It's wonderful to see you after 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, we
Incredible.
yeah we did talk so many years ago in Milan. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
very nice to meet you and felt immediately the connection and the friendship with you was is a real pleasure to be again together.
yeah. So the last year I've been interviewing as many female teachers as I can. There's just an urge that came up here to ask female teachers to come on and speak with me. Not particularly because I want to speak about female issues or anything, just because, um, yeah, there's such pleasure in the female and feminine expression of this subject. Yeah. But I also know that we haven't been in contact for quite a long time, so there's so much that's happened in those 10 years. So, but I thought we could start right at the very beginning of of how you got into this subject. Like I remember you had a fascinating story, but I'll let you, yeah, go for
Yeah.
that.
Well, what happened was that this is quite a long time ago because we're speaking of 2003, and of course, like it's not so relevant for nowadays how my life is, but how it all started was with some spontaneous satori that happened without me knowing actually even what awakening was. So I was having these moments of oneness with nature, with life. Like they were snippets, like quick windows opening into another reality, we could say, or what for me at that time was another reality that is my life now, actually. And it was an increasing process of feeling more and more in tune with everything and conscious of this suffering that was there all the time, independently from the situation where my body was. And and then there was like a kind of a peak experience, we could call it like that, around January 2003, in which I felt this incredible, vast wave of energy investing my body and expanding into bliss, into oneness. And and it's been after this peak experience in which I found myself watching the ordinary me from a wider space that I felt that was needed a teacher. But I also realized that if life didn't did bring me all these other experiences that were happening, it would bring also a teacher. So I didn't look for one until one appeared, and uh, and then there was a major opening, and he helped me actually to stabilize in that, and started to study with him and to work with him for many many years. And then in 2014, actually, that was more or less when we met. I started to be more public, started to be more like giving satsang around 2011, but I waited a long time for this process to stabilize and to be ready to bring something that was consistent and coherent and integrated as much as possible. But of course, you know, um, it's an ongoing process, so in 2014, I started to be more public, and then I built up in these last 10 years a center and been traveling a lot in the States and in Europe. So here I am. And it's been a story of looking for sharing this discovery that is fresh every day, every minute, and to share it with a lot of people that are walking on the path and trying to find this peace and this authentic love in everyday life in a
Yeah,
very practical way.
yeah,
A lot of things have been falling down. Uh, they keep on falling. And what remains all the time is just a sense of openness, spaciousness, connectedness that humbles me. And I would say more I grow and less I know.
Yeah.
And less I know and more I'm happy.
Yeah.
But that's where I am now.
Yeah, this is so beautiful, I find. Um, well, I think it can be in masculine and feminine teachings, but when people say they don't know, it's such a beautiful quality. Like,
Mm.
yeah. And so many people are too afraid to say that, the less I know. Like, yeah, it's so beautiful. So back to 2003, what did you think about that? Did you have spiritual knowledge when that happened?
No, I was Christian, and my prayer became more and more. Well, I'm still Christian. It's not that I'm not Christian anymore, but of course, my understanding of the Christianity and Christ consciousness has changed tremendously since then. And no, I was praying since I was a child. I never felt away from God, actually. But my prayer were becoming more like an amen and a thank you, more like that will be done, because there was an increasing understanding that what I, what life was giving was always better than what my mind wanted, even if I didn't know it at the moment. But I was seeing how things that were difficult for me were actually a blessing in disguise. So my preparation has been prayer and self-inquiry and devotion. And it's been only after I met my teacher that I met Advaita, and then non-dual Tantra, and then back to Christianity from a completely different perspective. So I think I've done the entire
Mm.
turn. And now, I mean, what I share is not religious, is of course universal. And sometimes there are quotes of Rumi, I don't know, or, Lao Tse, or, Lala Ded, or Nityananda, or, the beautiful masters that have been jewels of wisdom that we can reflect upon. But most of all, what I share is my direct experience. And so it's an ongoing living wisdom. And you see, whoever I meet, what I'm trying to share with them is that they are already what they are looking for. And whatever idea that they had about it, it's wrong. Even if they study for 10 years, but they didn't have any experience, what they knew about it has nothing to do with what actually is the direct experience of it. So knowledge can be a wonderful companion for destroying wrong concepts, but it cannot substitute, in my perspective, the direct experience. 5 seconds of direct experience of something, it's more worthy than 50 years studies.
Mm.
So I'm not a scholar, although I respect very much many, many traditions, and I enjoy reading them and discovering where they resonate with my own experience. But what I'm trying to bring to people is a direct experience of the true nature at the best of the capabilities of this form at the
Mm.
moment that is changing all the time.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So, so when you say your direct experience, so when teaching, um, but I'm sure it's in all areas of your life. Like, what is that like, when you're actually sitting there and teaching? Like, how does that manifest as? Like, for example, um,
Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
my favorite way of teaching is actually with a few students that visit me here in everyday life. So it's possible to use everyday little life things to show back where a person is. But this is only reserved to students that are with me since long time, of course, where in retreats there is, satsang. I share also with the conscious movements like dancing and also with perception exercises that are leading people to have a direct insight of what has been said. So it's not just talking about it, but invitations to directly experiencing it.
Beautiful.
So it's various tools. There is Gnana Yoga, Yoga of Understanding. There is Bhakti, no, of course, not towards me, but towards life. That is the Gurudev. And there is, Karma Yoga also here, in this little center. And in general, I invite people to do seva wherever they are, wherever they are in their community, as a form of selfless action that helps them to empty themselves of themselves and to be filled with love and gratefulness. So, I think a teacher is a tool. And so is a door. But what is important is people walking that door themselves. It doesn't matter who is the door or what has been done in the past or if it's a true teacher or not or whatever. These are excuses for the mind. If the truth has been shared with you and you see it in you, then it doesn't matter where it's coming from. So that's what I try to bring people to see, that they are the treasure and the teaching is just a map.
Yeah. So before we started speaking, I asked you who the photo in the background was, and I asked if it was Ananda Mayi Ma, and you said no, but there's another one of Ananda Mayi Ma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know Babaji so well, but I think you said it was Babaji. I couldn't quite see.
Babaji, yes.
Yeah.
It's an incarnation of Babaji.
Yeah.
I love Babaji very much. Yeah.
Um, so what's your relationship with Ananda Mayi Ma? I came across her a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. I'd heard about her, but it never come up. And I just like fell in love,
Mm-hmm.
like such divinity. And I just wondered what your relationship was with her.
She was the guru that appeared in the life of the teacher of my teacher. And I always loved her. And so there is a connection in this teaching lineage, let's say. And also, I love very much Mahakali as a divine expression of that force that removes ignorance from our life with compassion. And I think Ananda Mayi Ma is a wonderful embodiment of that energy. So recently I was given this picture, so I put it in my altar. Beside Mahakali, there is a Mahakali image, Murti, and then beside there is her. And then this, our recent travel to India of Babaji that I love since many years. And Ananda Mayi Ma was a wonderful embodiment of clarity and fierce sharing of truth. So we can all
Yeah,
be inspired by her.
yeah. And what was your relationship on your path, or when you teach as well, to more bhakti or more, yeah,
As I
devotion?
as I said, there is Gnana Yoga through satsang, so yoga of understanding, so dissolution of what is not truth, the neti path. And but there is a devotion not towards people or even masters. As I say, masters are doors, but to life as Gurudev, to divine energy, to the pure consciousness as Gurudev that manifest through teachers and masters, that manifest through many things in life, through all things in life, actually. So is a message that encompasses this aspect. But it's not part of the teaching in the sense that there is no like trying to be devoted to anything in particular. Is
Yeah.
is also something that is either there in people or is not. No,
Was
you
it there on your path at all?
absolutely, absolutely. I'm a devotee. There is no doubt. The understanding came afterwards, out of devotion. Yeah,
Mm. And what does it look like for you, devotion, or what's that? What was the experience of that? You say it came afterwards.
came afterwards. The understanding came afterwards.
And what was the experience of devotion? That was the awakening experiences, or when did the devotion? Did you have a sense of that?
I don't even remember not having been a devotee, to be honest.
Oh,
I
yeah, as a
always had.
child as well. Yeah,
I felt this connection with God as father, mother since I was born, and it's only when I was an adult that I understood it was not like that for everybody else. Devotion is a gift. I didn't deserve it. It was given, and if it's in our heart, it's a beautiful highway. The obstacle of devotion is not realizing that you are creating the object of devotion. And so you can get stuck in it. But if your devotion is weak enough, then you get empty of you and filled with God, and then only God remains.
yeah,
Or whatever remains of you is swept away by God, slowly,
yeah.
slowly. That's what I see.
So
But
yeah,
you can't
so
do it cannot be, it's not that you say, okay, now I decide to be a devotee. It's either there or not. And if it's not, it doesn't matter. Everybody path is different. Some of my students are devotees, and some of my students are more gnana, more pure Advaita, is what has been shared encompasses, both things. So there is no contradiction.
yeah. When I was a child, I also had the devotee side, and I've never heard someone speak about it like that, like it was given. That's really, it's not something you did to deserve the devotion. And I remember having it, like I didn't come from a religious family, but I remember having it in church towards like Mary Magdalene and Jesus and yeah, and easily, I just easily fell in love with things. I don't know if that was your experience as
Oh,
well.
yeah. I still fall in love all the time, continuously.
Yeah, that's sweet.
The more you remove you, the more actually this energy removes you, because you don't do it. But the more you are removed, and the more what remains is gratefulness and love for everything. And the beloved is everywhere at that point. Is not a place where is not.
There's
Yeah.
some people that some friends and teachers say that bhakti and dhyana yoga have to come together.
Yes.
Like there has to be the meeting of both of them. I don't know if you've got anything to express on
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was trying to say before, that when you arrive to the peak of gnana, you become a devotee of everything. If you see you're nothing, you see that everything is the manifestation of this void. And you see that there is only this consciousness in action. There is no one doing anything. So karma yoga becomes everything you do all the time. Or you could arrive to this through karma yoga and, through service, emptying yourself of your personal goals and be filled with love and reaching an understanding through it, or you can be a devotee, and this divine grace sweeps away old concepts about you, and you come into an understanding that comes from the heart, from the spiritual heart. So there are billions, zillions of ways to come to self-realization. And when you actually are experiencing it, then you see that every path, every true path leads to it. And Gnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti are actually coming at the peak to the same place.
Mm.
That's my experience, at least.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Mm.
Sometimes people want awakening for themselves, and then they get crushed
Yeah. Yeah.
because there isn't awakening for a person. So a lot of seekers want a better life, or a better version of themselves, and I think it's understandable at the beginning, but then on the way you realize that that's not the goal of your search for dharma. Is actually renouncing to the image of you completely, in the understanding that they are an illusion and they create suffering, and they are replaced with a seeing that doesn't give anything to the person. It's not the person that wakes up.
Yeah, totally. It's beautiful. Said, and that is the yeah, the crushing part, because a lot of people do come to have a better life.
Hmm.
And it really is the letting go of all of that.
Yeah, but it comes, everything comes in its own time. And maybe at the beginning, when you start seeking, your life gets better, because you drop things that were not necessary for you to engage in. But then arrives a point in which you have to give up the things you want and you think to be, and that's where usually people get stuck. Everybody's called, but very few, you know, get actually to the very end, because it's a very narrow path. You have to give up everything. And which force is going to make you willing to do so but love for truth?
Mm.
So love is, I would say, a very necessary ingredient. Is the love for truth that will, make you bow your head when it's necessary towards the facts of life, instead in your interpretation of it. And it's the love for truth that will make you honest to recognize your illusions and projections. It's the love for truth that will make you courageous to go through your fears and resistance and reactions. It's the for truth that will make you consistent, and whole in your behaviors. So without love, any knowledge of truth is just dust. It's just, a dry message, lifeless.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Without the love. Yeah, the nothing without the love.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so there was something that I was going to pick up on, but I get blissed out, and so then it becomes a little harder to be the interviewer. Um, so, so yeah, this is I don't know how quite to phrase this. like, do you think that so in Hinduism or in some forms of Hinduism, there is this idea of past life and karma that's
Hmm.
built up. Do you think that there is like personality types or traits that are more open to this? Or like, and that could be anything from ethical, or like some kids are born like super honest, or um, like some are born with this devotion.
I,
Do you think?
I would distinguish the characteristics of the individual from what is the consciousness that is embodied them.
Mm.
So there's been incredibly different type of people that were realizing their true nature. You have a Milarepa, and then you have super saintly people behaving very good. You have personality displays, or what looks like personality displays is actually characteristic of the form that are very fierce, and powerful, Another one that are very meek and sweet. So I wouldn't say that there is a type of person that wakes up. It's more that the maturity of consciousness through incarnation after incarnation reach a point in which it's possible to drop this. And sometimes it happens that this understanding happens in a lifetime, and then you don't finish the process and you embody again. So some people have been many times teachers. Not necessarily it's the first time that they get it. When you meet them. Not necessarily it's their first rodeo. But I wouldn't focus on that, the past life things, because it gives again the idea that you need to be special or you need to do something. When it's our time, it's our time. When this information starts to be in the mind, it's because it's been instilled, because it's the right moment. There are life in which you seem to have a very ordinary life and nothing is particularly spiritual. And then on a certain point, you're ready and you see it. And you might be knowing nothing about it, apparently, or maybe you studied a lot and it happens. There is not a way, you know. What gets mature is the capabilities to drop our personal point of view and to see what in us is watching life, independently from what is going on. I met people that had the first stories in war zone, for real, you know. And the student that we were chatting many years ago, he was in Damascus. Now he lives in Germany. He managed to escape the war. And he had his first glimpse in his living room when a bomb just, crumbled a wall of his living room. He was in the living room and he just went in the other room with his dog. And then the mortar made a hole in his living room. And if he was there, he would be dead. And the first thought he had was, OMG, that's what Shakti meant, that we don't decide anything. If I was there a second more, I would be dead. And he saw, that he was not in control of anything as a personal entity. And it struck me that instead of being terrorized that a mortar crumbled the wall of his living room, the first thought was, oh my God, I'm not the author of my action. This is an extreme situation, but just to say, you never know when it's going to happen. I
Yeah.
remember a lady that I was actually with my teacher when this happened many years ago. I don't know if she's still alive. She must be pretty old if she's still alive. She was a wonderful lady from Creston, from Colorado. And she was saying how when she was 18, she was washing the dishes and looking outside the windows and, I don't know, whistling or something, very like happy and gay and light. And at a certain point, she saw her own hands washing the dishes. She realized that there was nobody washing the dishes. It was just movements. And then she felt expanding beyond the borders of her own physical form into oneness. And then she got super scared. And the parents were bringing her to doctors, to bring them back to be normal. And something happened anyway. She put it down under the carpet. And then 60 years later, she was in this workshop with me and my teacher. And, uh, and she said, "Oh my God, I know what you're talking about." She had a glimpse again and said, "Oh my God, it's still there after 60 years."
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why, you never know. It's like so various. You never
Yeah.
know. Like another funny story, a taxi driver bringing a lady, obviously quite rich. I wasn't so sure she liked the satsang or not, so she came with this taxi driver and say to the taxi driver, "Do you mind if you wait me and let the count, let the money run and wait here? I don't know if I stay for 2 hours or 2 minutes. It depends on the talk. And if you want to come up and listen." So the guy, I don't know, was curious taxi driver. He came up, this was in Milano. He came up, he listened to satsang and he got a Satori, not the lady, but him. And he was a regular guy, just like nighttime taxi driver in Milano. And he said, in between, because I do night shift, in between clients, I just stay in my taxi, and on a certain point, sometimes I just look at people and I see just movements, and I don't see people in people. I see just like the light of the traffic and the cars. There's just movements. There is no body inside it. And he
Yeah.
never shared this with anybody. It was quite a profound state.
Yeah.
But he never shared it with anybody. And he didn't even know he was spiritual. You know what I'm saying? So he was a regular guy, smoking his fags, on the taxi in Milano. And then, he was coming like randomly, of course, brought by divine consciousness in the room, from my point of view. But from his point of view, was taught just like, by chance. And he said, "So you're saying that what I'm seeing in that moment is actually how things are, you know?" He was like, "Wow, I can see now." That's
Well, that's
came a few
sweet.
times. Yeah, it was very sweet. That what I would like to transmit is that it's not your wanting to wake up as a person that makes it happen. When it's your time, it blossoms. What we can do, if you want to do something, is to be honest with ourselves and see as much as possible how we are not how we are engaging into dramas, how much we are engaging into projections, how much we are defending ourselves, justifying ourselves. So to let the mind become more sattvic, if we want to use this word, and then when the mind is more calm because you drop things or things are dropped, then the invitation is actually here in every second. You know this. So, yeah,
Mm.
we are invited continuously to see it. There is nothing stopping us to see it
Mm.
because the ego is actually an illusion. So, yeah,
Yeah. In every moment, it's the open invitation. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to actually try to get you speaking more about the teaching. It's like trying to find the right question without it being inauthentic.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so you've spoken quite a lot about it not being for someone.
Not
It's
being sorry.
not
Not being
being for someone, that this realization isn't for someone. It's hard to think of the questions actually. I have to say, like the questions to get you and to basically what I'm trying to encourage is more like to talk more about like this, that it's not for someone. Like but it's hard to find a question
It's
for
not the
that.
person that wakes up, it's the
Yeah.
consciousness in us that sees itself, despite sometimes the attempt of the personality to better itself. The ego-based mind is driven by fear. So fear of not being enough, fear to be refused, fear to be abandoned, fear of not being able to survive, fear to die. Unconsciousness is beyond that, is beyond that attachment to pleasure and escaping from pain. So consciousness in us is already free and it's just watching this all the time. So if the mind attention comes back through the right understanding and through love for truth itself, if the mind comes back to the source of attention that is awareness, then this is seen. And from here, the path starts. The path of embodying this, seeing in our life. This recognition.
Yeah.
Because the first seeing is just the beginning.
And what does so like with the expansion part, so you're saying about you stopped that woman with at the sink when she was a child and she expanded out and stopped having boundaries. Is this what you mean by the recognition of consciousness, or is that more the embodiment of it?
Um, I would say that is a total initial state in which you still feel to have a reference point in the body. So you're still locating in the body because you're still believing to be in the body. So that expansion is actually the expansion in our true being. Our true being is not in the body. The body is in our true being, not the other way around. No? So when you get these initial states, it's just, it's not awakening, it's just an initial state of shifting from the perception to be inside the body towards the recognition that there is, that our true self is omnipervident. I don't know how to say it in English. It's everywhere, yeah?
Omnipresent, yeah.
Yes, omnipresent. So you get this sense of expansion from the illusory me towards the self. But usually this expansion is met, yes, with bliss, but also at a certain point with fear, unless there is already understanding in the mind. And then, there is no fear. Because in going beyond your limits, as a person, you're going to meet the fear of death. So the pleasure, not the pleasure, the bliss is going to be when you get beyond the border of the imaginary person, but when it's too much for the person, when the person would really need to be dropped, you experience fear. So usually the majority of people get this expansion and then they crash back. And they crash back into the imaginary person because they are afraid. There is not enough understanding. So that's where, having a guide is good because it will help you to navigate that and to detect and to drop the ideas that are still held in the mind and are making us believing that what we are afraid of is real.
Mm.
That is done, that, that expansion is dissolving into emptiness.
Mm.
But, it can take quite long time, depends.
Yeah. The way that I was taught by my teacher of phrasing it, or at the time, was like he would really point out to me to notice the difference between when I was contracted and when I was expanded. And this really broke my thinking pattern that happiness was dependent on an object. So it's like it wouldn't all expand at once, but there would be like these openings. And then I would begin to realize that nothing changed in the external world, but when there was more opening and more, my energy wasn't being so contracted inside of the body, there was more peace. And then everything was more
Is,
free.
is, is a good indication when you're still believing to be a person. No. So you have a reference point of a subjective place from which you see expansion and contraction. Ultimately, we have to be ready to see that the presence in us is beyond any expansion and beyond any contraction. Otherwise, you're going to go up and down with your attention. If you follow just expansion and contractions, you're just following the movement of the mind. And instead, the presence of our being it doesn't contract and it doesn't expand. But initially, it's a good way to see, to become more conscious of our inner landscape, let's say.
Yeah.
Because if a person is very identified with their stories in the mind, to become more focused on what is their inner landscape in terms of fear and joy, it's good. It gives you some insight.
I really love how you say that the expansion and the contraction is in the mind, that that's a movement of the mind. It has to be a movement of the mind. It's a really good
Mm,
thing to point out and to say.
yeah. Yeah, because otherwise we look for this peak experience of bliss as a proof that we're going somewhere
Mm.
where we don't need to go anywhere. We just needed to recognize where we are all the time. And from here, the fear starts and the suffering ends. When there is bliss, where the bliss is expanding into is what we are. The bliss is not important,
No.
or the
It's very
fear.
tasty, very tasty, but not
Yeah,
important.
you can get attached to it, of course, but you see, how to say, we really need to develop a taste for nothingness, and that comes with detachment, comes from maturity. Yeah, a ripeness. No, otherwise we will feel, oh, now I'm closer to truth because I'm blissful. Now I'm farther away from truth because I'm suffering. Where instead, I mean, awakening and ignorance are happening in the mind, in reality. In the true self is beyond it, is beyond everything. There is nothing because there is no movement. So the recognition happens in the dissolution of the mind in its own source. And the ignorance happens in the mind in getting attached, when consciousness gets attached to the object of its own creation that are happening in its own being. It is not seen as happening in its own being, but is seen in an illusory way as something separated from it. Ambition, spiritual ambition, is a trap, isn't it?
Mm.
Because it guides us to believe that we are going somewhere. In my perspective, a spiritual path is about forgetting of ourselves, and and then the fullness of divine grace is is here when any of that drops. Don't know if it makes sense to you, or is your experience?
Yeah, no, totally. It's really beautiful sitting and getting the opportunity to listen to another person say it.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it, to
Yeah,
share
yeah,
and
yeah.
to get it
Um,
from another angle.
yeah, it's really beautiful. Um, so just to move on to yeah, being uh, expressing this and being in a female body, which is such a broad subject. I just wondered what came to mind and like what that's like for you to, go to these conferences to do that and to be in a female body. Like maybe you don't notice a difference, or maybe.
Um, to be very honest with you, I don't even see myself as a woman. I totally enjoy the female body I'm born with. And I honor femininity and I honor sacred femininity that is beyond being woman or man, of course. But I never felt to be that, you know, that my teaching was female. Um, for sure, people would feel the female expression in my form, but it's not how it's experienced in me. Um, and I don't focus on that. I have a lot of male students. Um, I mean, a lot compared to other people. They say to me there are not many male students. So I would say 40% of my students are male.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know if they look at me differently because the form is female. Maybe initially, but I don't think this is something that is then important once
No.
we meet each other,
Yeah.
because it's more like a consciousness meeting itself, beyond the forms.
Yeah, totally. And
But
that
again,
is
we live in a
really.
world where women are discriminated. That's a fact.
Mm.
But if I have to be honest and say that I felt discriminated, it would be a lie, to be honest. So I don't say it.
Yeah. I sometimes think that sometimes people find it easier in the beginning having a teacher of the opposite sex. So sometimes I think that men find it easier to go to a female teacher because of competition, or like
Maybe, yeah.
it's like
Maybe.
a.
I noticed that there are people that, some of us, they grow more with a male reflection, and some of us grow more with a female reflection. But ultimately, this is just like for the mind. And the essence of the message is neither female or male. And maybe the only difference, maybe, if you want to focus on that, is that maybe Sangha led by women are more circular, and where structure led by men sometimes are more pyramidal. I don't know if it's correct in English. Pyramidal or pyramidal, sorry. The English is
Yeah, like this, you mean? I'm not
yeah,
very great at English
yeah.
either. But you're
So
actually really good at English, but I mean, I get words confused.
so sometimes when you have what I know is leadership in male leadership is more like everybody wants to be like that person, yeah.
Ah,
Where instead, what I notice that when a woman is in leadership, it tends to create more a circle, yeah,
I
where
see, I see.
everybody is included, and the leadership of the women is to hold in the circle together.
Yeah,
And that's how I see it more in my community, in my sangha. That is, I mean, it's not a huge sangha, but it's quite a big international sangha now, and it's a sangha where people feel more like we are a kaula, a family,
yeah,
a circle. I don't think they want to be like me. I don't think it crossed their mind. Instead, when you have like sometimes male leadership is more like imitation of the leader. But
yeah, I see. Yeah,
I'm not saying it's a rule. It's something I noticed. It might be
yeah.
also that it's different from some male teachers. So
Mm.
uh, yeah,
And what about your name? How did you come to have the name Shakti?
it was given to me by my teacher, and was actually later that I received another name that is more complete, but I don't use it. That is Devamat Shakti. And then I decided, because everybody was calling me Shakti, I said, okay, I put my civil name. So now I'm known as Shakti Katerina Maggi. Katerina Maggi is my civil name, and Shakti is my spiritual nickname. But everybody calls me Shakti. So it's actually weird now when people call me Katerina, because my mom calls me Katerina and I love it. The funny thing is that they mean the same thing. Because
Oh,
Shakti,
really?
yes, because Shakti is the purifying energy, you know, it's like energy of creation, but it's also fire, no, it's power. And Katerina, it comes from ancient Greek of ekateros, it means purifying fire. Is
Oh,
one of the
wow.
name of Apollo. Yeah. So in some way they are related. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, life is just the idea that we're doing this life is just crazy. Like that you end up with the same name,
Yeah.
different languages.
Sometimes
Yeah.
my friends say, "Oh, Shakti, like, it's too much fire, too much energy, too much, going on." And I said, "Hey guys, I would like to be called Shanti, but unfortunately I was called Shakti." So yeah,
Yeah, that's sweet. And do you remember why your teacher gave you that name? It just came to him or he had a specific reason?
it's just like told me that there was like when he told me actually my name, I felt a huge wave of energy crossing my form and cried like a total recognition. And initially when he was just mentioning the name, I was feeling this bliss. So it was like an initiation, really.
Mm.
I don't put so much attention to it. And I could also be called Caterina Maggi, but after 10 years that you are called Shakti by everybody, it's like be weird, So when I started teaching in 2011, more publicly, because I was teaching with my teacher before, but I started to teach by myself in 2011. It was weird for me to come back to being called Katerina, like nobody was calling me Katerina. So it would be like you starting to be called John, instead of Lisa. So, so I didn't want to be fancy or anything. Like it was really how everybody was calling me. So the only thing is I thought it was a nice integration to put my civil name and part of my spiritual name together. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, just see if any other questions come up.
I don't know. It's nice to connect.
Yeah, it's really sweet to connect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one heart with many heads and arms and feet
Yeah.
and bodies that
Yeah.
is sharing itself throughout the world.
Yeah.
If I can leave a message, if you allow me,
Mm.
what I really would like to speak about is the necessity to drop judgment nowadays with all these conflicts that are going around the world, all the wars and terrible tragedies, and try to drop the judgments and open up our heart and really trying to meditate in our heart what is going on. The world needs love,
Mm.
gentleness, kindness, goodness. Nobody speaks about goodness nowadays. It's so important.
Mm.
These spiritual virtues in the mind, the developing of them, it's helping tremendously. When the egoic mind arrive with its attacks, you can use this strength, you can use this psychic energy to be able to remain strong in you and to meet these challenges. So dropping judgment, dropping all the violent way in which we got used to live, and to be more attuned with what is true in us,
Mm.
in our heart.
Mm.
Even in
Yeah, it's beautiful.
spirituality, so much judgment about other people's path or teachers, you know, my teacher is better than yours, or my path is better than yours, you know. And coming back to what we said at the beginning about knowing nothing, saying, I don't know how is that path. I don't know how it is to be you. How can I judge you? How can I say that you're wrong? I know nothing. We barely know ourselves. And then we start to listen more. And when we listen and we drop in the listening, we access to a knowledge that doesn't come from the mind, but comes from the heart. That is the true teacher, the inner guru, the Guru Devinas. So that's my invitation as a final message, if you want.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah. And really important. Like
Mm.
yeah, it's all comes from judgment or from um the the way in which we see other. As soon as we drop that seeing other, then they're totally free.
Yeah, we are all divine embodiment,
Yeah,
looking for the recognition of it.
yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Shakti, for your time today. I so
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Um,
Me too.
yeah,
And it was wonderful to connect again. And I hope we don't let other 10 years pass by and having
yeah.
great hair and being grand.
Yeah, well, we're now connected on WhatsApp, so I will send you some voice messages. Yeah.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you, Lisa. And much love to all of your friends and students listening.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful journey.
Yeah.
Always
Thanks,
connected.
Shakti.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, dear. Thank you.